Hashtag You're It. I'm Amanda Malcolm, and you're listening to You're It Girl, a podcast focused on you and what propels you. Because that past, it does not define you. Your time is now, and you're it, girl. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to You're It, Girl. I'm your host, Amanda Malcolm, and Claire Spencer is my guest here today. If you listened to the last episode, we sort of prompted you for what this episode is going to bring because we did a thing.
We're doing a thing.
And the thing is, we together are starting a business, and it's called
The Riches.
Divorced and Thriving. Oh, we didn't even rehearse that. That was so good.
That was good.
Yeah, look at that.
It was so scary to say out loud, and I'm so excited.
Yes, it's so in sync. If you've been watching our social media lately, we've been just kind of sprinkling this in there, a little drip.
Spray.
And I think it's been confusing to some people. Like, what's going on? What is this thing that they're posting? We've told a couple people about it. And so we are here to share the reasoning behind the creation of this business, where it kind of came from, and what the future brings for this business venture. I'm so
really
excited too. Yes.
Well, and just a few seconds ago, we were talking about, like the golden age of any career or any position. And I really wanted to say that one of the things that's really meaningful to me about this is that it is a way to be of service. Mm-hmm. It's a way for me to give people what I needed so badly. I am so excited for the both of us that we're able to have children who are thriving, really solid relationships with our forever baby daddy.
Yes. Forever. The forever baby daddy.
Forever. So I'm just glad I figured out how to make it good and how to come out on the other side of something that's that painful.
Yes.
And feel so proud of myself, so proud of the person that I am, so proud of my daughter, so proud of the relationship that I have. But man, it was brutal. It was like scraping, and it's so hard. So that is also the reason is that I know that Amanda and I are an incredible team in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. And that by doing this, we can actually do something that is profoundly helpful. It's so important in my life anyways, to not only feel like I have a community, to feel like there's a cause, to feel like what I'm doing is meaningful and contributing in a positive way to the world.
Yes, 1,000%. And when we were both going through our divorce, I didn't even know, I talked about in the last episode how I kept it so private, right?
Yeah.
It was something that I didn't tell anybody. A couple of my good friends knew. None of my family members, I shouldn't say none. My dad knew, my brother knew. They were the only ones that could be trusted. I didn't want to have a lot of other opinions because I knew what that would bring to the table, right? Because of the idea around divorce and what that means and how you failed, how your partner failed. How are those in church going to view you? How are your family members going to view you? What are your friends going to think? What are your married friends going to think now that you're not married anymore? And so without even realizing it, I did that thing where it's like, keep it private. Don't seek out opinions of others. Don't tell as few people as possible, right? And that meant that I was really navigating through a lot of it very alone. And it's isolating anyway. And thankfully, in my life, I had some key people that were very helpful navigating through that entire process. You were one of those people. But it's not something that you're supposed to do alone.
No. And so what you bring up is you it's like you preemptively rejected any support. Like, yes. I don't want to find out. I don't want to find out if church is going to judge me. So church isn't going to, nobody's going to get to know.
No one's going to have the opportunity.
I don't want to find out if my friends who I thought were my couple friends are now going to view me as like dangerous or broken or I'm going to make them uncomfortable because it brings up. So I'm just not going to tell them. And you really protected yourself from any sort of rejection. And you also protected yourself. It was intentional. Yeah, you also protected yourself from like being vulnerable with yourself and like allowing people to support you.
Mm-hmm. Intentional but horrible.
It was horrible. And I think one of the intentions of this business is to give women a place to be in community where you're allowed to vent. We really don't want to get into spirals of hating our exes because that actually doesn't help you move forward.
Correct.
It's fine to have some moments, but really a place to be with people who aren't threatened by your divorce because they're going through a very similar thing. They're not going to bring dogmatic ideas about marriage into the situation. Being able to really express when I was sad and when I was angry with people who allowed me to express my emotional experience, but didn't allow me to be a victim of my circumstance.
Correct.
Having a place where I could talk about how hard and terrible it was without being, getting sent a referral to go talk to the pastor or whatever that sort of thing was also really powerful. And I'm just remembering that I felt all of these funny things about religion, about couple friends, about my parents. Like, there's part of me that even though I was getting divorced, I felt bad because I was like, if I am not successful in this marriage, then do my parents feel bad about themselves? Like somehow they failed me. So I was trying to manage all of these emotions, and it felt really difficult to actually be transparent with them too, because I have this need to feel really great and fine and like I make good decisions so that nobody feels bad about themselves, which is totally insane. But that was it. And it was so deeply lonely.
It was. Even you brought that up about your parents. My dad knew because I needed some advice that I felt wasn't going to be judged, but I could tell that he didn't feel as though it was his responsibility, but I felt bad that he was now going to be worried about my safety and security.
Yeah.
It was like in his mind, he was like, oh no, now what if she is making a decision where she's actually going to be worse off than just by staying with her husband? And so I carried a lot of guilt with that for being responsible for making him feel that way for my well-being.
I don't want you to worry about my well-being. Don't care about me if it hurts you.
Exactly. So that brings me to the question. When you were navigating through your divorce, what things helped? What did you feel like actually available to you in those moments? What did you actually need that wasn't available?
Yeah. I feel like I've talked about this before and probably on this podcast, but I'm going to say it again. I am hesitant. I don't want to bypass anything, but there was, I think for me, the real catalyst in shifting was accepting what was and accepting my role in it. And I had this really powerful realization that, especially for a codependent person, that I can't control anybody else. At best, I can manipulate them, and that so much of my energy is going towards trying to control and manipulate other people to make them love me or to make them feel safe. I'm not even talking about nefarious manipulation. It's like, how can I make you feel so safe and so loved that you will love me or that you will feel this certain way? And I really accepted every single choice I made up to the point that led me to such severe self-abandonment and to being in a position where I was with a partner where it wasn't going to work out. And I kind of thought, oh, if I can make this big of a mess out of my life by accident, maybe I'm a powerful creator. And maybe it's just possible that if I started to figure out how to do things on purpose, I could make something really amazing. So once once I started to really stop focusing on the things that were out of my control and say, there are some things that I can figure out. I can plan. I can learn how to regulate my nervous system. I can actually return and begin to learn myself. That's when I started making real progress. If I hadn't made that decision, or if I hadn't kind of accepted that that was the only path forward for me, I would have been swear word. And then along the way from that decision, I have such an incredible toolkit. I have got, I've done like circling work, which is a conversation style. I have done breath work. I have done these different types of ceremonial work. There's been prayer. There have been business coaches. There's been financial coaches.
I've known you through all of these things.
There has been different career paths. And I found a great community, which is I work for now. And I found really great friends to help me play with all of these things to figure out the pieces that are going to work. And I think that this is going to be a long, uncomfortable pause, but I think that, the most important thing for me was being relentlessly committed to being a better mother and person and more alive person and good partner, because I knew that that's what I'm teaching my kid. That was it. It was like, I don't know if I would have done it for myself, but I was like, if I want my daughter to not repeat my mistakes, what do I need to learn? If I want my daughter to know how to have a good relationship with her father, I better figure it out. If I want my daughter to be unafraid to like live outrageously like alive in the world, I have to figure it out. If I want my daughter to know herself and to not self-abandon, to please and to find love, I got to do that. One of my least favorite and best phrases is that kids do not do what we say. They do what we do. So it was this tremendous amount of pressure. And it was also a tremendous catalyst for me in finding all of these different techniques, all of these different researchers, boundaries books, hard conversations books, like everything that I did was like, I was like this vacuum, just hungry of like, I have to figure this out. Losing is not an option. I am going to do it.
There's so many different layers to everything that you just said there. So let me break down a couple of them. One is the consistency of all of those pieces. It really brought me back to when I was navigating through divorce and how it was like this podcast, this book, this therapist, and we talked about this a little bit before we started speaking. There wasn't like one place to be able to have, all of these things. And I, isolated intentionally, which was a negative, I realize now, even though at the time it felt empowering. It actually just meant like I was more alone than I was when I was in the, towards the end of the marriage. But there wasn't a place for all of these things. There wasn't a safe space to be able to go and talk to other people about that, minus that one friend you knew that had similar ideas to how they wanted it to end, because I had friends that were going through a divorce as well. Not just you that had already navigated through just the piece of signing the papers, not the aftermath of all of that, and where you eventually, and the conversations that have taken you to where you are, not the healing modalities, and the conversations with your ex-husband and the experiences going through the next year of it and the year after that, because the divorce piece of it is actually pretty small. And for the most part, pretty quick.
Yeah.
Right?
Comparatively speaking. Excruciating long, comparatively speaking, pretty quick.
The healing process afterwards actually takes many years. So there wasn't a place to be able to go to for all of those things. And even if you were seeking advice from somebody that had been through divorce, there are a lot of negative feelings surrounding divorce.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of things internally that we haven't dealt with, right? And so for me, navigating through that piece of it was like, okay, there's 10 people that I know that are going through a divorce or that have been through divorce, but there's really only one person, and that was you, that had at that time frame the same mindset as far as like, how can I heal myself and have this be as positive of an experience as it can be for me to be able to also then create a team-like dynamic with my ex so that my daughter is thriving and healthy and knows what successful relationships are supposed to be like, right? A lot of times when I talk to people, there was still a lot of negativity, still a lot of shame, still a lot of resentment, a lot of ex-husband bashing, a lot of financial bashing, like all of this stuff. And it was just something it wasn't helpful to me from a healing perspective to be able to throw that on to my ex and not take responsibility for the role that I played in the divorce. And then also just not wanting it to be negative. And so there wasn't a space for that. And so there was Okay, I'll talk to my therapist. Okay, I'll talk to this friend. Okay, let me find out what they did that was helpful. There wasn't a community.
Yeah. And it sounds weird, but like they definitely don't teach how to divorce successfully in college, because I would have nailed that, because I'm teacher's pet and I love to do things. And
I
do
would have
them
nailed
well,
it too. I always got
right?
A's.
I just be like, oh, unfortunately, I'm in a divorce. I'm going to sign up for this degree and I'm going to crush it. In 2 years, we'll be done. Oh, poor little Claire, thinking those types of thoughts. One thing that I think that you bring up that's super important is there's two aspects to this divorce experience. And one is what I think of as like resources and toolkit. So that's like legal advice and financial advice. And we all have our niches. Like some of us are in a really strong legal position. Some of us are in a really weak legal position. Some of us are in a strong financial position. Some of us have left the finances up to our husbands the entire time and are scrambling to figure this out. Those are toolkits, right? Mm-hmm. Those are practical steps. It's really helpful to speak to an expert. But then there's also a piece of mindset that is what you get when you connect with other people. And because divorce is often so private, and because it's splintered out into like church groups or, divorcees on Meetup, it's not that you can't find people that you align with. It's that, at least for me, I think that the best part about any community is that when it reaches, you really need like 100 to 200 people, which we will grow towards. But from within that group, then I can actually find another woman in her mid-30s who is making less money than her husband and who has one child, who lives in Phoenix, Arizona and knows the Arizona laws, who has a similar mindset. Mm-hmm. And from that really large group or pool of people, I can find people who are in a similar spot as I am, who are there when I'm like, today was just so hard and I need someone to remind me that I'm not like gaslighting myself into thinking that everything's okay. I can't pretend that's okay anymore. I can also find people who are maybe 3 or 4 steps ahead, who are like, oh my gosh, yeah, I
can get there.
And I was exactly there. And this is what I did. And that I'm also not restricted to only being people like me, because sometimes I can learn from a 65-year-old woman who's going through divorce and is like, well, I actually have 35 more years experience than you do in relating. Mm-hmm. And we can play off of each other, and we can almost, it sounds a little silly, but I really think of community as this like magical experience where you can follow your intuition and you find people that you resonate with, or you find things that you're curious about. And there's not per se like one way to heal yourself. Right. There's not one method towards fixing your finances. There's not one lawyer who's going to be the best for everybody. It is really circumstantial. And through these connections, we can really find much better support than if we had to go and Google it all and read through reviews and then have a bunch of meetings with lawyers. We can say like, I liked Yelp when it first came out, because they would have a review of a sushi restaurant and the reviewer would say, I like my sushi this way, which is why I like this restaurant. I don't like sushi that's this way. And so I don't like other restaurants. And that sounds really silly. But especially when you're dealing with things like healing, someone can say, I have a really deep physical trauma from my divorce, and this particular breath work was way too intense. And so given my nervous system and where I'm at in the process of my divorce or the process of becoming, I wouldn't recommend it. And then you can have somebody else who's like, well, I'm an ultra marathoner and I thought this was great and it brought me a lot of clarity. And then you, from other people's advice and also from understanding their story, have yourself like, oh, I do want to try this. I have an idea of what might be available to me, or like, hey, I'm going to put that off for a little bit, or I just don't like the idea of cold showers. That sounds awful.
And there's something so important about being able to connect in that way through hearing someone else's practical experience, rather than investigating and learning about these things yourself and then just trying something that has no basis or no quote unquote review of what that personal experience was like, right?
Yeah. Well, for example, I love men and I love biohackers, but taking nervous system regulation advice from like a clinical study is maybe a best guess, but you really have to learn for yourself what is going to work for you and what isn't for you. And you're going to learn, instead of learning from the results on a broad population, take the results from a population that's really similar to you physiologically, emotionally, where you are. And that's going to give you a better sort of tuning fork to find things that are going to be useful, or for finding lawyers that are going to be useful, or finding financial advisors that are going to be helpful.
And you talk a little bit about the toolkit and having, access to experts with certain things, be it financial, legal, and all that. But the important piece about the community and the mindset of being able to connect with other people is like, until you can get to that point within yourself where you are regulated and feeling mentally stable and emotionally positive, it's really hard to tackle those other things when you are in a space where you are feeling isolated and can't talk about these things, because those things, even though they are more, they're things that are essential to tackle when you're going through the divorce or navigating through those pieces, right? But it's really difficult to focus on them when you're not in the best of spaces, because they seem so big. And that's why the community element of what we're creating is so positive, because you've got other people that you can talk to about these real emotional, deeper issues that can then make those other things that you're going to have to tackle, right? Much easier.
Much easier, for sure. What's coming up for me right now is like one emotion that's really tied with divorce, I think, is shame.
Yes.
And shame, it's already pervasive in our culture. I'm really ashamed that I don't have a waist that's this big. And I'm really ashamed that I don't have a G-Wagon like that person on YouTube. Or wherever you look, there's a way to, it's endless. And shame is an emotion that stops progress. It's the thing where you say, I think I'm going to die if people find this out. And so I'm going to hide it. Right? And so the best thing about community is so much healing can actually just happen, and so much pressure relief can just happen when you have a place to be as honest as you are able to in that moment, and be met with compassion, and be met with people who are like, yes, me too.
Well, I don't know if you remember this from getting a divorce, but whenever you told someone that you were going through a divorce, what is the expression on their face? And what is one of the first things they say, which is usually like,
I'm so sorry.
I'm so sorry. Like, and they don't even really know what to say. It's literally like when someone dies, you do the same, you have that same face and you say that same thing. Like,
it's not for a lack of love. It's just like, I don't know what to do.
Right. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. And how does that make you, like, literally the look on someone's face and the way that they express that, like, you are already feeling shameful about the failure of it, right? And now, whenever you're confronted with it, it's basically reinforcing that exact feeling by someone's expression and the direct words that come out of their mouth. Not at a fault to them. It's just, again, people don't know what to say, and there's a lot of feeling that comes up with that particular topic.
Yeah, there's one of my favorite writers is, I am going to butcher his last name, Thomas Schubel, with the umlaut. And what you're bringing up as he does a lot of work on generational trauma, intergenerational trauma, trauma as us, the trauma isn't the thing that happened, it's the avoiding of the processing of the thing that happened. And in one of his books, he talks about how one of the most powerful things that we can do for other people is to not fix, it's not to give advice, it's just to be present for their emotional experience in a regulated way. And it's almost like, hey, Amanda, I know that you need to cry. And you know what? I'm here. I know what I'm doing. I'm here on purpose, and I'm going to let you cry. And I am not going to interfere with your process, but I'm also not going to leave you. And so an intentional community can hold that space where we don't have to per se even do anything. It's the healing aspect of it is that it feels safe to express, to be witnessed. So you don't have to be an expert or a therapist to listen to somebody and just say, hey, I'm not going to leave right now as you feel this. There is nothing, I'm not going to abandon you for having this emotional experience or for having these thoughts. Like, I am here right with you. And I think when you create on purpose a group that has that understanding of, hey, we can offer advice, we can give you resources, but ultimately we are here to just be present with each other and to feel like we have a place where we are not going to be abandoned. That is so profound, because when you're talking just to your mom's old across the street neighbor and you say, I'm getting a divorce, and they go, they didn't really sign up for that. They don't know what to do. They become dysregulated. They're surprised. Very few people are sort of psychologically aware, or like they didn't consent. You're telling them the truth, but they didn't say, oh, hey, I'm in a really good place. I'd love you to tell me something terrible. You're like, I feel like I have to tell the truth, but you're not prepared. And now your nervous system is getting whacked. And my nervous system is already completely out of whack. And the jangling of our two nervous systems together makes me feel worse. And I just can't deal with it. So I'd rather stay home and like not talk to anybody. Opinions.
Yes. And also, I mean, that brings up, because when you do mention that to the neighbor or your church friend or even your sister, those that are married, there is this feeling of like contagion. You know?
Yeah, contagious.
It's like,
do you have?
I don't even know if we really. They're like, I don't want to talk about this because, and then you're just left again to like, you were vulnerable to share this thing again that nobody really asked for, and now it's something that they don't even really want to discuss.
No, we don't think you're gross. We just want you to
stay away. Don't come over.
We just want you. Yeah,
stay away and don't come over.
It's fine. Just we'd love to have you over, but it's couples.
Yeah, that does happen.
Yeah, and I actually didn't have it happen that often, but there's also
like
a palpable
to a small degree.
There's a palpable,
and that's okay.
Yeah, there is a palpable third wheel feeling though. Mm-hmm. I remember crying a couple times because different neighbors were like, oh, like this must be really hard. Why don't you come over for dinner? And then I'd be at dinner with their happy marriage and their happy children, just like, I think I have to go. I have to go. Like, thank you for
never
the
going to feel this again.
This is really bad for me right now.
It is.
Yeah.
It does feel that way.
It does feel that way. I want to make sure I don't miss anything.
I know. So actually, let's talk about what we're going to be. So you're going to see us lightly sprinkling this into social media over the next 6 weeks or so. We've created a wait list, a much anticipated wait list.
Yes.
And we're going to officially launch our first community, are we calling it a session? Our first community discussion.
Our first community discussion.
As of September 1st. As of September 1st. So it is coming soon. In the meantime, we are going to be building the community and creating topics that we're going to be discussing. And within that will be toolkit, practical experience of things that we did work through that helped, conversations that we had with our fellow co-parents now that helped us to be able to get in this space that we're in, topics that you and I discussed when we were going through divorce, or even the aftermath of it, right? That have helped us navigate conversations with friends, family members, with our children, with our exes. So those are all going to be topics and things that we're going to talk about within the community. So we will be providing practical experience and tools to be able to assist with those conversations, self-regulation, all these things. Am I missing? What am I missing?
No, and I just want to say that the really fun thing about, for me, building community, which I've been doing for
She's so
5+ years, is
your strong suit.
I know. And I feel like that, like a cartoon character whose brain is like, there's an aspect to community which is facilitating connection. And there's also an aspect of this particular community where we do want to introduce you to all of these tools, all of these practices, different ways of looking at things, different ways to change the way that you feel in the moment in your body. But some of it's going to be iterative. So what we're doing right now with the waitlist is we have a questionnaire. We want to know where you're at, what you're interested in, what your biggest struggle is, because I have a lot of experience. I have a lot of tools at this point. So I'm going to be listening. This isn't just I know how to fix everybody's divorce by following this 5-step formula.
There is no formula.
There's no, it's where are we right now? What is the most pressing thing? What is going to be the most useful tool? What can we as a community decide, like, hey, we're all struggling with this particular theme. And then we will go into the pieces that Amanda and I have leveraged to work our way through whatever that struggle is. So it might sound like we're being slightly vague, but that's on purpose because we are going to have not just an online community, but regular calls where you get to meet other people, where you get to practice being vulnerable, where you get to practice being witnessed, where you get to practice telling your most horrible truth and realizing that you didn't die and you weren't abandoned and that somebody else's my favorite thing about group therapy, by the way, is usually I find out that I'm either completely normal or really, really lucky. So there's that aspect too, where you just begin to feel like you're a normal person, but also doing these practices, also offering people ways to integrate and change their life in a daily way that is doable, because I hate having more places to fail, but it's really iterative. I want to know what you all are going through or what your friend who you refer to us is going through, so that we can start that conversation of like, what is the best thing you need today? I don't always need like cardio at the gym. Sometimes I need sweet potatoes. Sometimes I need Cocoa Whip. Sometimes I need to go for a long walk. And so that is part of this community experience, is this co-creation and listening, really deep listening of what is going to be the best thing that's of greatest service to the people who are interested in not doing this alone. And really to women like us who refuse to let this divorce turn them into a bitter old hag.
Yes.
I really thought of it. I had a few bitter hag moments.
I had a few of those too.
God, they were delicious and very poisonous. And I just didn't want that long term.
I didn't want that long term either.
I am so tempted to insert a bitter hag cackle right now.
And I mean, the beauty of it is it's going to evolve as you evolve, as the community evolves. So we don't have a framework exactly for what that looks like yet exactly, because through listening and finding out where everybody is as we start, that's how we are going to start it. And then we're going to be evolving with you as these experiences and things come up. So that way we can together tackle them in the right way. So that way you can be where you wish at the end of it.
Yeah. So we will be collecting information. Please sign up for the waitlist. And that's, if you're on that list, we will send you emails with information about launch, about what you're getting as we begin to collect this. If you know somebody who is going through divorce and could really use community support, please send them our way. And over the next few months, we will begin to listen and begin to formulate what is going to be the most of highest and best use for everybody. I don't want this to be like another thing where you just tune in and you listen to a Zoom call. I didn't need more information. I needed friendship, and I needed to do things that were actually going to change my experience of the world. And I needed to not do them alone. So that's what I'm looking to provide.
And so you're not going to be
alone. And I
alone.
have a lot of experience
so you're not
doing
be
that.
We both do. Yes. Well, you have a lot of experience with the community. Claire really does. And so you will not be alone. And that was the whole purpose of us creating this entire thing. As we thought about it, it's so odd actually, because Claire had come to me maybe, was this a month and a half ago? About a month and a half ago. And she said, I thought of this thing. She said, I think that we should create a community that is centered around divorcees and going through that experience and what that was like, and to be able to help each other, because, you know, I've experienced with this and this is where I am today. And I said, that is so funny. I pulled up my phone and I said, look at the notes I made 2 weeks ago on doing this very thing. And I showed her the date of all of the bullets that I had put in that same idea. And we both looked at each other and said, maybe this is why we know each other, you know? Like there's always a reason for that. There's so many with us. But I thought it was so profound that we both thought of that separately, but that we've navigated through this experience in a very similar way and how we've helped each other grow to where we are. And so I'm honored.
I am too.
To be able to start this business with you. And I'm so excited to be able to meet all of those that are involved. And so to start following, we have our Instagram handle is divorced, and thriving. It's called The Riches.
The Riches.
Yes.
And we called it The Riches pretty quickly.
We did.
Because it really is about all of these painful experiences can show us just how incredible we are. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to cry. My life is so rich.
Make me cry.
My life is so rich as a result of this very painful, very confronting, arduous, gnarly process. And by facing it and by not being alone and really leaning into whatever I could do, I love myself so much more than I ever have. Yes. I am so proud of my life. I am so proud of my daughter.
I'm so proud of you.
Yeah. So I want everybody here to live this more bountiful, more beautiful, greater version of themselves, a greater version of themselves as a parent, a greater version of themselves as the person on the other side of a really hard thing.
Mm-hmm. I want everyone to feel that too, because it's an incredible feeling. It really is.
It really is.
Yeah. To be free and flourishing it's an incredible feeling that I wish for everyone to experience. Sometimes it means going through a hard thing to be able to get there, but you can. And
I am literally never going to stop trying, but I think I also think that one of the bravest things that any of us can do is look back at the hardest time in our life and look at somebody who's right there and reach our hand back and bring us with you. That's it. I was there. I needed this. I want to reach my hand back and help you too, and give what I can to make it amazing.
Yes.
Okay, I'm the crier in the group. But look at us. We have feelings.
We do have feelings.
We're doing good.
We can feel. So stay tuned. We are going to be releasing more information. We will keep you up to speed every step of the way. And if you feel like there's somebody that you can connect us with, please send them our way. I'll put the link in the bottom of the episode.
Thanks, Amanda. It's
Thanks,
such a pleasure.
Claire. That's your It Girl.